we cut that out too late or too early. Welcome. It's live podcasting. That's the beauty of it all. And yes, it's the end. Sorry, thankfully coming to the end of the International Week nonsense. We've a good show, I hope, tonight. We're going to talk about things past slightly and a lot past in terms of Liverpool and internationals to keep with the theme. And then we also have a look at the game coming up on the weekend. We're back to the real deal, the bread and butter, the right stuff, as they say in New Kids on the Block. I don't know. I had all the records. I don't know why. Jamie, how are you today?
Grand, lads.
I just want to point out for anybody who is actually watching, they did not coordinate beforehand, Jamie and David, for what colours they were wearing tonight. David, how are you, mate?
Doing good. Got my grown-up drink, and I'm ready to chat some shit.
BJ says, Jamie, Ian is not to be messed with. And as a man from the north, we know that to be a fact.
I will take that compliment. I will take that as a compliment, should I say?
That's a joke for our diaspora out there from Ireland.
Cheers, BJ.
But tonight, let's start as we always do with Jamie's 60-second news. If you have it ready. Again, not that an awful lot happened this week, but stuff does happen even in the international breaks for some reason. What have you got for us?
I will get is right. We'll just get stuck straight in. We'll drag it out, see how long we can go. The three returning into training, lads, is Kelleher and Kanate and young Calvin Ramsey all back into training today. Also news out of the club today that Liverpool have got a new partnership with Coca-Cola. We can talk about that, I'm sure. But today as well is the 41-year anniversary of the great Bill Shankly's passing. 15 years at Liverpool, 3 league titles, 2 FA Cups and the UEFA Cup as well. The legend from Glen Buck, and all our thoughts are going out to him and his family. He'll always be a Liverpool legend and live long in the memory. But I guess the news is the Reds are back after the international break, and now we're going to be looking to face 13 games in the space of 42 days, folks. That averages out to about 3.2 games, a game every 3.2 days. So crazy times.
I think as well, it's going to feel like 3.2 games every day for the players by the end of it all, really, isn't it? It's going to be madness. But let's just get back to Bill Shankly, because we wouldn't be here without the man, really, would we? David, what are your thoughts, especially as you know, an American Scouser, on the great man who, you know, modern football, you see a lot of kids getting into Manchester United or Chelsea 10 years ago or thereabouts, or Barcelona, and maybe not getting into the history of the club. But Bill Shankly is the club, really, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about like pivotal moments in any organization. The reason that Liverpool has its identity, as you go deep into like the culture, everything behind, like, you know, the politics, all kinds of things, that the reason the club kind of has the identity that it has is Bill Shankly, right? He was the guy who shaped a culture for the first time. I mean, not, you know, Liverpool as a club, it kind of went about its business before him, but had never really achieved anything particularly great. And he completely changed that, and changed the way that we played, changed the way that we trained, just changed the club into what it really became, what it really has become. And you, at different times in your history, you have to have like that pivotal moment, that key character. And for our lifetimes, I'd say it's probably Jurgen Klopp, right? And he's sort of like our modern Bill Shankly. But for the folks back in 1960, Bill Shankly there was no one to compare him with. He was just the original. And there's nothing you can say about, or there's not enough words that you can say about Bill Shankly in terms of what he means to Liverpool Football Club.
Jamie, from our part of the world, maybe not, obviously not so much over here, but he really did have kind of the the aura almost, even going into the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s of, say, the way Vince Lombardi would have over here in terms of American football, or Tom Landry, or now Bill Belichick. He really exerted an influence beyond his own lifetime as well. He really impacted the game in a huge way, didn't he?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, you lost me at the American names being thrown out there, the Lombardis and the Belichicks. I've heard them before, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bill Shankly absolutely embodied what it was to be a Scouser in those days. You know, he came from a small area in Scotland, Glenbuck, and you know, working class, and a lot of literature out there today on his 41-year anniversary of his passing, and you know, some of the quotes, you know, listen, he was so far ahead of his time that even in today's world, you can kind of see, and rightfully so, like David said, Jurgen is our modern day era Shanks. And, you know, one of the best quotes, I mean, there's so many great quotes from the man, but Liverpool was made for me and I was made for Liverpool. Like he really did embody the working class ethos and just got it, and you know, brought us up and won our 3 divisions, 3 league titles, and just an amazing man. And yeah, I mean, there's so much to learn from him even in today's world. You know, like when he lost, he would take his time and he would like clean the cooker. You know, he would clean the stove or something like that, like something horrible like that. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, if we could all do that, I'm sure our better halves would be a little happier in our lives, because I know, speaking personally, when we lose or even when we draw these days, I'm a miserable so-and-so. So maybe if I can get down on my hands and knees and clean the stove, hopefully the wife's not listening. She's upstairs there. She probably is. But I swear, if we get beat this weekend, I'll clean the stove. How about
that? I think as well, one of his other great quotes that kind of summed up the man was, he said once that when he was in the army, as pretty much everybody in those days was at one point for the national service, but although he was in World War II, so it was a completely different thing. But he said if him and some other squaddy were sent in to clean the toilets, he would want his toilets to be cleaner than the other guys. He was so competitive, but not in an obnoxious way. He just wanted to do the best he could.
He said hard work makes everything better. Do you know what I mean? Like, absolutely.
It was literally like a man imprinting his image on the club, and in such a way that as much as there's a division or a dislike for Brian Clough because of his remarks around Hillsborough at the time that it happened, Bill Shankly was the only manager, I think, that Brian Clough never actually had a bad word to say about. He was in awe of the man. David, it's for our club to have, I mean, we have an aura anyway, but to have a figurehead, more than one figurehead at this point, to have that kind of aura, it's part of the specialness of the whole thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you look at what he started and what he passed on to Paisley and what Paisley did with that. And then he passed it on, and then the boot room idea really came out of Liverpool, and we're actually kind of starting to get back to that. Maybe. I mean, would you be angry if Pep Linders took over the reins when Jurgen Klopp retires? I wouldn't be mad about it. I personally, he may not be my first choice, but
as long as he doesn't bring out another book halfway through the season and give away all our secrets.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that is a good point. But no, Liverpool's a club that loves a tradition, and Bill Shankly started some really great ones and got us into a way where he set us on the course for like 2 decades of success, essentially.
And he was there for 15 years. I mean, if we could have Klopp for 15 years and then pass the torch down to Pep, that's an amazing tenure. But I mean, in today's world, you'd be lucky if you get 15 years out of a manager,
Or if you're at Watford, you'll be lucky to get 15 days.
Right.
But just to kind of like wrap it up in terms of, we say Klopp is almost the Bill Shankly, but we kind of were always looking for Bill Shankly, really, weren't we? Like it was the Houllier was the new Shankly when he came along. Then Benitez was the new Shankly, and then Hodgson was not even worthy of putting his socks on or darning his socks rather. Kenny was the return of that whole boot room thing. But here's what I want to say about it is his entire philosophy was down to one word. I think he said it consistently was simplicity. And I think that's sort of what Klopp has brought to the club. Really, is it's just simplicity in everything we do, Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to get bogged down in the details, right? And the especially with these masterclass. Sean Dyche has even done a masterclass episode, which is joke worthy in and of itself. But like you said, the simplicity, football doesn't change, right? And if we could all take a leaf out of Shankly's book and put in that hard work, like you were talking about, and that ambition to make your floor shinier than the guy beside you, and put in the hard work on the training pitch, then that's a life lesson to be learned right there.
I think there's a good interview he did with a Scottish television channel or BBC. It might have been BBC, where he says there's the people who use big words to sound impressive, and they use those big words knowing full well that only 10% of the people will understand what he's saying. And he said, instead of me saying that somebody was avaricious, he'd say they were just bloody greedy. And that just really summed up the beauty of, like, imagine being coached by somebody who took a complex game and refined it down to its bare bones. So you could understand it. You trained it, as they famously did, in five-a-sides and nothing but five-a-sides. And then, not to bash Brendan Rodgers, but in terms of the differences between approaches, Klopp his entire system could be said to be simple, even though it's really not. Where, say, Brendan, who is a good coach, but clearly complicates the game for players, like in a massive way. It's just, it's good to have a manager who understands the Shanklyization, so to speak, of Liverpool Football Club, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, and it boils down to another one of his great quotes, put the ball in the back of the net and we'll discuss your options later. A very matter-of-fact way of addressing situations like that. It's football can be a very easily overcomplicated thing, and sometimes you get the best results when you boil things down to the simplistic approach. I
think one more thing, just because BJ said it there. There's a clip on YouTube and in all the documentaries of the day he resigned or retired from Liverpool. And it's Tony Wilson, the famous Tony Wilson, who discovered New Order, etc., like big in the Manchester music scene, doing the interviewing. And the state of shock a lot of people were in. They literally couldn't believe that Bill Shankly would left Liverpool. It just says so much about the measure of his importance to the club at the time, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, and it goes on. I think I watched an interview with him from probably I think it was in the 80s, and they're still asking him about it. It's like years after, and he's still getting tons and tons of questions about it. It was something that, I think it shook the football world a little bit, and then certainly the Liverpool community. It's one of those things. It's almost like the day Kenny left later on, when that. Many people remember where they were when that announcement came out.
Absolutely, like breaking news, and before the papers even came out with it, and everybody thought it was like a joke, but yeah, unbelievable, man.
I think just finally, I mean, he was only 61, 62 years old when he died. These days, he'd only be getting started almost. He would have at least 10 more years left of management. Such a loss.
International manager.
Such a loss, but a brilliant man, and the man we owe pretty much this entire podcast to when you think about it. But let's stick with the trips down memory lane. Tonight's big sort of, apart from the preview, the game at the weekend, our big thing tonight is, because it's International Week, we're going to talk about our favourite ex or current Liverpool international players. We've picked two each. We'll go one each. Jamie, me, David. Jamie, me, David. Some surprising and not so surprising choices. Jamie, who's going to be your first pick?
Well, I kind of went.
And why?
Well, here's why. So I knew you'd be going for a couple of Irish lads. So I kind of let you through that one. I kind of let you through that one. Plus, you've got a few years on me, so you're more able to speak more knowledgeably than me. But I went for the Spanish connection. My first choice would be Xabi Alonso. I kind of idled myself on a Didi Hamann type Stevie G midfielder, but then when Xabi Alonso came along and was just so gifted in the middle of the park, there was a stat going around on his first year for Liverpool that he never passed the ball backwards in his whole first season. Every single ball that he played was a ball forward or sideways. But yeah, at that time in my life, I was probably still young and impressionable. And, kids these days go out and buy international shirts just because. I think I definitely had a Spanish jersey. But I mean, a real colossus in the middle of the park. And you're talking about a Spanish team that had Xavi, Busquets, Iniesta. I mean, by all rights, he probably didn't get as many games as he probably should have. I think he's got 114 caps for Spain and ranks 7th highest in the Spanish national history. But a real colossus in the middle of the park and won a lot of winners' medals with them in that time, 2003 to I think it was 2014. But yeah, he's my first pick, a real silky smooth midfielder that, you can only imagine a player like that. Well, we kind of have a player like that in Thiago, but you can imagine what Klopp would do with a player like that in today's football game.
David, what are your abiding memories of Xabi? That he really was a class act, wasn't he?
Oh, Alonso was amazing. I'll never forget that goal he scored from the center circle. That was I fell in love with him because his passing ability changed the way I viewed the game at that time. Like I was, really still kind of getting into it. Like watching European football because previously we hadn't had that much access to it. All of a sudden it was on our TVs and I'm watching different players, and this player was just the way he saw the field, the way he moved positionally. It almost looked like he wasn't really working that hard. He was just kind of jogging around, and then all of a sudden he changed the game. And defensively he was very good, and he was just one of those players. But he really allowed Gerrard at times to be Gerrard, right? Like without him, Gerrard can't go do all those different things. And when Mascherano comes in, Gerrard gets to just be a number 10 all of a sudden, right? So I thought he was fantastic. And the 05 final. But I got to say, like that year that we almost win the title, and he was a key part of that. And I can't narrow it down to like a memory of Xavi. Just this whole stint at the club was fantastic.
But that goal, I mean, that's a good one.
I lost it at the pub.
Fulham, wasn't it?
To a stool. Like,
yeah, it was. I think it was Fulham. Yeah,
yeah, it was.
But the other memory I have is the one that sticks out is the World Cup final where he gets kung fu kicked in the middle of the chest and then plays on the rest of the game. Good old Howard Webb given a yellow card for what is essentially GBH, grievous bodily harm.
But it's a shame almost, isn't it, that we didn't have more or any like trophy success, say, of the magnitude that his talent probably deserved on the club level with Liverpool. Do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement to lay at him. Not his fault by any means, but
no.
But yeah, definitely a player of his stature. And recently just played in the Legends match. Once a red, always a red, and he really truly embodies that. And that kind of Basque and Catalan attitude goes well with the Scouse mentality. Where we're the underdogs and we're the backs against the wall. But I mean, a quality player.
Do we think that in the Benitez system, which was very, very regimented. You read all the player biographies and the interviews. There was literally nothing that Benitez didn't plan down to the last centimeter, or inch if you're American. But think that system really did need somebody like Alonso who could improvise in situations that you look back at them and you go, how the hell did he think of that before anybody else thought of that? And he was thinking 2 moves ahead before everybody else was thinking 2 moves ahead. He was really necessary for that system to work, wasn't he? Almost more than Torres or Gerrard.
Yeah, when you're in a setup that's that regimented, right? Like someone's got to bring the creativity. Otherwise, and it wasn't really coming from our wide areas. He was a huge source of it, and it made it all work. Was the fact that we had that in the middle of the park. Otherwise, I don't really. You don't have to think too hard about it. We were still pretty regimented at times in the post Benitez era, but when you even look at when Alonso was hurt, we just weren't as good. Plain and simple, we were not nearly as effective in the middle of the park, and Stevie had to do a lot more grinding kind of work, like getting back. He couldn't just roam; he had to be much more disciplined. And I just remember thinking, like, we're like one bad injury to this player from falling apart at times, So we were always kind of relying on him for this steady, reliable presence in the middle, but also the ability to just unlock a defense with one ball.
Jamie, we will end the Xabi Alonso bit with a question to you, because you probably will have the same memory as me. Xabi Alonso was the kid at school when you played in the park after school whose team you wanted to be on, and more so because he would give you the ball sometimes, no matter how bad you were. He just had that class about him, didn't he?
You know what? He could be playing in loafers, and he could be playing in them Adidas Gucci shoes that you've seen. He could be playing in a pair of flip-flops and make it look good. He was just so silky, and like David said, and like you've alluded to, like he always was 1 or 2 steps ahead. Like even on that long-range goal from his own half, he took that one touch. He knew exactly what he was doing before he received the ball. Players like that are a dime a dozen, or sorry, are few and far between. But
few and far between.
Yeah, I mean, he really was streets ahead, and is managing now. So
we'll see what happens with that.
Wouldn't you love to be being under the tutelage of Xabi Alonso?
I would say no. Just to put a fly in the ointment, and that those super talented players tend to not become great managers or coaches because it comes so easy to them. It always seems like they can't translate that easiness to lesser players. Like I always remember, I believe it's Bobby Charlton started his managing career, and then he said, it was Bobby Charlton or Stanley Matthews who said, I spent a week trying to get these players to do things that came in nature to me and realized I could never communicate it to them, so I just quit. He seems to do okay as a coach, but I would have a Benitez over a Benitez or a Klopp with a lesser playing career and lesser talent over Xabi Alonso as a coach, simply because they probably had to learn how to do a lot more.
Sure. Yeah,
Xabi Alonso probably came out of the womb.
Yeah, could still walk on the pitch and do it.
Yeah, Xabi Alonso juggled his own afterbirth about 20 minutes after he was born and scored. So we'll move on to the next move. It'll be me next because this is just a legend for so many different reasons. These two players that when we get to my second player are connected, but we'll start with the first one, which was the man with the second best moustache in Liverpool, especially at that time, Johnny Aldridge, the replacement, I think, for Ian Rush at the time. An absolute hero for Ireland. Up to the scoring that's today for Oxford, for Liverpool, for Sociedad, and then for Tranmere. He was essentially scoring a goal every 1.5 games or thereabouts. He was absolutely magic. And to kind of bring it into the modern era, I think this player would have been perfect for a Klopp team because he was perfect for a Jack Charlton team, which is one of the first pressing modern teams. He only scored 19 goals for Ireland in I believe, 10 years, whatever it was, because all he did was press. He did the Roberto Firmino job without having any of the extra talent. He was just a pure goal getter. What is anybody's memory of John Aldridge at all? Jamie, let's start with you because you're closer to that time.
Well, just a quick shout out to a few of my boys in the Wilmington group: Theo, Brian, Kurt, Zach, Matt. A few of them all chipped in and got me a cameo message for my birthday a couple of years back, and it was from Aldo himself. So Aldo sent me a wee birthday message and showed me some great Liverpool classic shirts and some great Ireland shirts and wished me a happy birthday and said, go enjoy yourself a couple of Guinness. But yeah, I mean, a great Red, a man after my own heart, as he said in his message to me. But yeah, quality and to get that little privatized birthday message on cameo was something else. Really made my birthday that year, and I still look at it from time to time. But a quality player, like just an amazing forward. I'll always remember that rant on was it Italian 90 or was it?
No, it was 94 on the sideline. Yeah, 1994 against Mexico. 2 minutes waiting to get on, because the Egyptian official couldn't understand the paperwork, because the little slips of paper they have to hand. He's absolutely temperamental. He was a proper Scouser, born and bred, like absolutely temperamental. A great goal getter, a fantastic replacement for Ian Rush. But the thing I want to tie into it and then ask David his impressions, recollections, or memories, or knowledge of John Aldridge. It seems like him and then the other player I picked, and maybe one or two others in that period, were let go or let leave way too early, because they continued, a lot of those players, especially when Souness came in and got rid of players, continued to have fantastic careers. David, what are your thoughts, memories, knowledge, or whatever of John Aldridge?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I was very young during, if alive at all, during Aldo's playing days. But, obviously his goals and everything are amazing on the greatest hits, Liverpool reels and everything. But my biggest memory of John Aldridge is actually the night we beat Barcelona 4-0. And
yes, that was commentary
amazing in the booth that night.
Yeah. He is fantastic on the
whose name slips my mind right now, but they set a tone for the evening, and just every time you watch it back, it sounds amazing. So yeah, the LFC TV that night and John Aldridge on the call, that was awesome.
I think as well, yeah. I mean, it's great to have an ex-player from so long ago who's still that passionate about the club, isn't it?
Yeah, that's one of the things that makes Liverpool special, right?
Exactly, and it's like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You can tell he lives and breathes and bleeds Liverpool red. Like David said, it's so evident when you're listening to the commentary, whether you're listening to the audio commentary or you're watching along with them. He's brilliant and knowledgeable too. Obviously, he's played the game for as long, but quality guy and really good to knowledgeable, like I said. But he's so opinionated about certain things when it comes to refereeing. He was always one of the first to complain about this delayed offsides rule. If you are an avid listener to the LFC TV commentary, he's always one that's harping on about it. In fact, hardly a European game goes by where he talks about it. But he is brilliant to listen to on those commentaries. And if you haven't, go ahead and check him out. I'm sure you've all seen the Barcelona videos, like David was saying.
I think like for him as well, as the kind of player he was always looking to break the many offside traps that were being played in England at the time. So he probably has first-hand experience of making that run, taking the shot, and then in the modern era getting it called back because it was offside 15 seconds ago, whereas when in his day it would have been called instantly. But yeah, fantastic player. But what I also want to point out how good he was for Ireland, because we talk about Klopp and Geoghegan pressing, and we talk about City and Guardiola's pressing. But Jack Charlton was almost one of the originators of the thing. Like the Ireland team, if you look back at them, were just hounds for getting that ball back as quickly as possible. And not knowing necessarily what to do with it when they did get it back, but you wouldn't want to be playing them for 90 minutes at the right temperature. But yeah, a fantastic player and a great model for Liverpool and a great model for Ireland at the time. David, who's your first pick for international player, ex-Liverpool?
Well, Jamie went with the Spanish connection, so I thought I should pick some Americans. The problem is, there aren't really, I'd have to go South Americans, right? So we'll start with Fabio Aurelio, who I loved just because I thought he had a great style. For a defender, he had a really great attacking skill set, could pass, could cross. I mean, some of the passes that he pulled off were fantastic, but he could also put in a cross or hit a dead ball. Fantastic. I'll never forget the one at Old Trafford to make it. I think it was 3-0, but that one was where Van der Sar just falls out of his underwear. Looking at it, it was what a day that was. And he played on that team that challenged for the title. He wasn't there for, I think, he wasn't there for the Champions League in 2005, and I think he came in after the FA Cup in 2006, so he never really won anything. But I just really liked his style and what he brought to the team, and he was something different, but he was incredibly reliable at times when he did play. He did have some injury problems, but I just really enjoyed watching Fabio Aurelio play.
It says something, Jamie, for a player when they become a meme, a GIF or GIF, if you want to be technical about it, all to himself with the what the F is this shit thing. It's so perfect for so many situations. But he really was in my area growing up, where we were all Liverpool fans, and maybe a few Arsenal fans because they were huge in our time with the Irish connection. But the classy left back was the thing you wanted your team to always have. And Jamie, was class personified, wasn't he?
He really was. And our first Brazilian, maybe that's why David and I are wearing yellow. But Fabio Aurelio, I mean, like David said, you're always going to remember him for that free kick. In many ways, very similar to the Gary Mack free kick we were talking about, mirror imaged on the other side, where you're thinking there's absolutely no way he's going for goal here, But a quality left back, a Brazilian left back. I mean, he was no Roberto Carlos, but he may as well have been for us. Like he was quality, and started a good Brazilian tradition that we've stuck strong at. Him and Lucas, and then now we've got a plethora of them. We've got a wee Brazilian five-a-side going on if you count Thiago almost. But yeah, quality player and a left back. I know Carragher's always quoted as saying nobody wants to grow up and be a Gary Neville. Nowadays, with the genesis of the attacking wing backs, maybe he was kind of on the cusp of that. Maybe he was a bit too early. But a really good player, and I mean, he didn't really win much, like David said, but always good to have a flair attacking left back,
As the old saying goes, you never forget your first Brazilian.
Sounds like a painful memory, Mark.
I don't want to talk about it. It's a long time ago. Jamie, let's go on to your next player.
So yeah, Spanish connection. I went Torres, because the man El Nino was something else for us, but another thing entirely for Spain. Was in the youth system, under 16s, under 19s, played all the way through. Another one that went past 100 caps for Spain. I think he's the third highest goal scorer in the history of Spanish football. Him and David Villa up front were unbelievable. I mean, just two prolific strikers, and scored on the big stage as well for Spain. A real, I mean, it's Torres,
David, what's your thoughts on he was such a great player for us, but he left under such a cloud that it still stings a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, although I don't know, it's tough to blame him for the shape we were in around that time. I mean, but at the same time, like, of course, it's hard to forgive. But I would predicate it as just saying, blonde Torres was awesome.
yeah.
When he stopped being blonde, he was, because the truth is, towards the end of his Liverpool time, he wasn't playing well at all. He kind of fallen apart. But those first couple of years, I mean, he was unbelievable. I remember being at the pub with friends and that first game against Chelsea, and you're like, we might have a player here. I mean, I hear a lot of great things. I haven't seen that much of him, blah, blah. And then he scores that goal. And we all went bonkers. And everybody was like, this guy's going to be amazing. And then the season that he had, you were like, okay, so we're set it forward. You can go on to thinking about other things, And he was a special player, like in his prime, Torres. I loved the song. He had a great song.
Yeah.
He brought us a lot of fun. Didn't win anything, obviously, with us, but how much of that is due to the time that he was at the club versus him? I think it's really just kind of a symptom of that period. But great player, and went on to go achieve other things. And I kind of over time softened my stance on him, and he even said later that he wishes that he hadn't left in the way that he did. So I kind of think when you're young, you make dumb decisions sometimes, right? You listen to the wrong people, and maybe you just got some bad advice and made a stupid decision. I don't know, but he was a great player.
Jamie, as David says, time sort of heals all wounds, as they say, and you kind of do soften your position and maybe forgive him a little bit. But how pleased were you? Look, how much did you punch the air when Daniel Agger smashed into him the first time Liverpool played Chelsea that time?
It does soften the blow that he was shite at Chelsea, but he really was. It was god awful. I mean, it was the what was it? Samson when he gets his hair cut off. It was very it was very like that. It was painful to watch at the time. I'm not gonna lie, but nostalgia is a wonderful thing, and even my wife, she when we got together in our heyday, and I would take her out to watch the games, it was Gerrard and Torres, and she fell in love with Torres, I think, before she fell in love with Liverpool. I think it was easy on the eye, his lovely long locks, but his play was something else, and that was kind of enough for her. Like, she loved that link up between Stevie G and Fernando Torres too. But it was good to see Agger, because a player like that isn't going to give you an inch, whether you're Fernando Torres or Pele or Maradona or whoever. In fact, he's probably going to step his game up, and no quarter given. And absolutely. You're once a Red, always a Red, and it's easy to say that after the fact. But in those early days at Chelsea, it was a bitter pill to swallow. And Agger's always good for a hard tackle anyway.
David, how different do you think the reaction would have been to Torres leaving had he left under Roy Hodgson rather than, I think it was, unless I'm having a complete brain fart, he left when Dalglish was the manager. Correct? Yeah, it was Dalglish was the manager. Yeah, it was the winter.
He'd only been in charge a couple of months, right? So
Suarez, that was Suarez and Carroll.
It was such an emotional time to get the king back in the sea. You just wanted everything to go well for him. And then this was almost a hammer blow that our star striker, as injured as he was around that time, didn't want to be there anymore. Do you think maybe the reaction would have been different because if Roy Hodgson was in charge, we probably wouldn't have blamed him. We probably would have packed his bags forward, good luck. Let's see if you can get anybody else out here and get Hodgson out. But it really was damaging that Kenny Dalglish was almost getting his legs cut off before he'd even got them under the table. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. The reaction would have been different. I think back though to my logic at the time, right, was, and we heard a lot of this, but I thought he was kind of in a downward spiral anyways. So we'd sold him off. We got, I think it was like 50 million for him, which at the time was an unbelievable amount of money.
Huge.
And we went out and we got, with that money, Andy Carroll and Luis Suarez, which on paper at the time we were, fans were saying, oh, it's going to be the next Keegan and Toshak, right? We were all excited. It does give us Suarez as the main thing. I know it also gives us Andy Carroll. We all think that was a big waste of money, but at the end of the day, what Luis Suarez ended up giving us was probably worth 50 million. So, you got to think it was kind of a fair trade in some ways. And there were some pretty interesting games under Kenny that season. I remember there was a game at Fulham. We won it, I want to say 5-0. And we played, the only way I could describe the formation was a 5-5. There were no strikers. It was just 5 defenders, 5 midfielders, and it was amorphous. I couldn't tell where anybody was actually playing. It was one of the most interesting games I ever watched. So, I mean, in weird ways, like Torres's departure, it gave us a necessary kick into a transitional period that we needed to go through anyways, quite frankly.
It's probably fair to say that as happy as we were to get Luis Suarez out of that deal, the people who were probably happiest that Andy Carroll was part of the deal was probably Newcastle Brown Ale, really, when you think about it, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Jordans enjoyed that day.
Never seen without a bottle of Newcastle Brown Ale after he joined Liverpool at the nightclubs and whatever. The next one is it me?
It is you, yeah.
It's me. Oh man, because this is a legend. This guy's an absolute legend. I'm sorry. My next pick, again, on the tip, as they say in rap music, of going too early. Stevie Staunton, Stan the man. I just remember him as being, he wasn't the most graceful footballer. We just talked about Xabi Alonso and the class that he brought, and Fabio Aurelio, who was a classy left back. But Staunton, for a period, was almost unstoppable in that position, wasn't he, Jamie? He was just probably the top left back in England for a while. Great left foot, great engine, zero charisma and zero actual creativity, but he just made it work, didn't he?
It was a proper workhorse. Had a really long career too. Like was playing into the 90s, wasn't he?
Well into the late 90s, yeah, early 2000s maybe.
Had a long career for a good number of clubs. I haven't got the list in front of me, but
it's basically Liverpool and Aston Villa. If you look at it, he just kept bouncing between the two, and then he ended up at Coventry.
Yeah. But like you said, no frills. A true Irish worker,
I think David. Souness came in and essentially ripped up the entire blueprint of everything that had made Liverpool successful for the previous 30-odd years. And he generally, I'm not a huge fan of Souness as a person. As a player, he was fantastic. But he generally doesn't like to admit any of the mistakes he ever made. But one mistake he did admit to was he shouldn't have sold Steve Staunton too early. Do you think that period was a case of letting players go too early that could have helped us be successful? Because Staunton went on to be part of what was at the time an excellent Aston Villa team, if I remember, under Ron Atkinson, that were making headway in Europe and everything. Really, that kind of class of player at that time probably should have stayed at Liverpool even a few more years on top of what they were under Souness. Do you think?
He went on to go I think he had more than 300 appearances for Aston Villa. He's a really reliable player, right? So, and Souness, the thing about him is, right, you can use words like arrogant, hard-headed, it's to describe his time as a manager for sure.
To this day. To this day.
Even as a commentator now on, I think it's BT. I mean, like you said, he's not one to admit mistakes, but this probably was one of them. It's kind of a weird period for the club. It's that sort of post-Hillsborough. The 90s were kind of a strange Liverpool time. I guess it was accompanied by some strange decisions as well.
Just one word on those milk bottle legs, though.
I mean, he was from Drogheda, so he probably got the least amount of sun of anybody in Ireland.
Absolutely. If he's seen the sun, he'd have an allergic reaction.
If he opens his fridge, he gets an allergic reaction. But here's the thing, we're talking about his legs. He did have one of the best left foot free kicks in the business, didn't he? I mean, certainly for Ireland, he scored a lot of free kicks for us. And in fact, twice against Northern Ireland, I believe he scored directly from the corner in two separate games. Two separate games, yeah, not the same game, yeah. Directly from the corner. Remember, we used to get half days from school when Ireland were playing. Internationals in those days were mid-afternoon sometimes. They were like 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Wednesday.
See, they wouldn't have done that. They wouldn't have done that in the north. They wouldn't have done that in the north. Not a chance.
Well, we got them off. It was great. But yeah, scoring from corners, like straight in under the bar. But it's almost like he harks back to a day. And I've said this before to Mooch, and we used to have an era, if you remember, when fullbacks took all the free kicks. We have it now with Trent and Robertson, but Trent definitely because he tries to score from them. But it seemed to have disappeared for a lot of time, didn't it? The whole idea of the fullback, the Gary Kelly or Ian Hart for Ireland and Leeds taking the free kicks, the Stuart Pearce's, that kind of player in England. But Staunton was one of the best in the business. And it's nice to see that we're getting back to that, allowing our fullbacks to actually take the set pieces rather than the star attackers, do you think, Jamie?
I think the idea with that is, usually you've got your centre backs in the mixer, in the box for that delivery. And usually you want your wing backs, because they're inevitably pacier. They're faster than your centre backs. You want them furthest back the pitch so they can track back if need be, if the counter's on. Nowadays, with the conditioning of centre backs and the pace that we have in our centre backs, it's not so much of a worry. But you're absolutely right. It was always good to see, going back to the Aurelio thing and a wand of a left foot that the left backs inevitably have, good for delivery. But we're definitely blessed with Trent nowadays, who can take a decent shot on goal too.
We'll end on Staunton because I think we got to Dave now for his next player. Who was it?
Yeah, we got to go Luis Suarez for me. That 13-14 season alone was some of the best football memories I can remember. Like watching him against Norwich, we didn't mean to, but we broke things. Like the pub was a mess. When he hits that volley, I will never forget my ex-wife. She was like my fiance at the time. Her face, I mean, her jaw just dropped. I think he was part of the reason she really fell in love with Liverpool, was because he was just so electrifying to watch. And I'll never forget one time my dad was at the pub with me, and he was not a big soccer fan, right? He's more of a baseball guy. But it was the day that he bit Ivanovic. And he goes, "What is with this guy?" I said, "Today you got to experience the full Suarez. He committed an intentional handball. He had an assist, a goal, and he bit a guy." I was like, he's the full range of emotions in any given But was he a psychopath at times? Yeah. Was I kind of okay with him going? Yeah, in a way, because I was getting sick of him getting suspended. But man, when he was on the pitch, you could never doubt his passion. You could never doubt his talent. And he just was a game changer. I mean, he just put us into situations that, quite frankly, if you looked at the rest of that lineup, sometimes I thought we're not good enough to be in the position the season that we challenged for the title, 13-14. It's a good team. It's not a team that should challenge for a title, but it's Luis Suarez that gets us there and has us with 3 games to go in position to win a title. And it was just some incredible memories of that season and emotional highs.
Jamie, would it be controversial to say that Suarez is possibly the most talented attacking player we've ever had, just in terms of raw talent?
It's definitely a debate worth having. He's certainly up there. Maybe the only thing that's going against him is his time at Liverpool. It was short-lived. So you never really got the full scale of data where you can really analyze how great he was. It's argued that his prime was at Barcelona, and not necessarily by Liverpool fans, because he was influential, seems to be. Doesn't really do it justice. Like David said, Norwich were definitely glad to see him go. I know he's hated by most. Was it Ghana that he done the handball?
Yeah,
Ghana was the handball. Yeah.
Just you know, a real menace to society. But when he's your menace, it's hard. You know, he had undoubtedly had his flaws, and they're well documented. But what he lacked in social graces, he definitely made up for. You know, expressing himself through his feet and his hands and his teeth and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Yeah, he was a fantastic player, but also possibly a pointer in the modern way we went. You know, because we have Firmino, who probably would go into that conversation of talented attacker. Salah is the same. But they're just almost like more disciplined, polite, went to school versions, non-street versions of Luis Suarez, really, aren't they?
Yeah, Suarez is the unbridled.
But speaking of the modern attackers, we have a game coming up this weekend. It's us against Brighton and Hove Albion. Lads, what do we think is going to happen with this one? Is it going to be a case of new manager bounce for Brighton? I can't remember the name of the guy that went in there. It escapes me right now.
Dezor, was it something?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
It's somebody with a reputation. Anyway, will we get back on track? Will Trent use the game as a way to stick two fingers up at Southgate? What are your predictions for what's going to happen this weekend?
I'll go. I'll take a 3-1. I think, you know, we're still, even though with Van Dijk maybe getting a wee bit of form with the Dutch, I think Brighton are still an unknown entity, even though they've done well in their first couple of games. You know, they beat United, and maybe that's a no mean feat. But you know, I think it'll be a good game. I'm just glad to have football back. You know, end of the day, it's been a long break without the Reds.
David, how impactful do you think the loss of Graham Potter will be? And I think some of the coaching staff have gone now at this point as well. How badly do you think it might affect Brighton? How well do you think the new manager might, give them a bit of impetus going into the game?
Yeah, you're right. He took 5 coaches with him, so that's significant. But I think because, it's fresh enough, the players kind of know how they want to play, what they've done well, where they've had success. They're in sort of a rhythm. It's going to take this new coach a little bit of time to set in, so I don't think much will change. But it's like Jamie said, they're a little bit of an unknown entity. The thing about it is, though, at the moment, so are we, right? We don't know exactly what we're going to churn out because we were pretty unpredictable before we came into this break. And now we're all just hoping, like Jurgen said, that we lose the form that we had and regain a new form, right? So I don't know what to expect necessarily from us. I definitely don't know what to expect from them. So I'm going to go with like a 4-3 wild one. You know, they're all trying to impress their new manager. I think we will come out of this break in much better shape than we went into it in. I think the break will have done them a lot of good. Jurgen and the team, the coaching staff will have gotten deep into a lot of things with the players, worked on a lot of things. So I'm actually just really looking forward to seeing the way that we play. How Brighton play will be very interesting as well. But I think it could be a little bit of a wild one.
I think you make a great point with Trent too. Like Trent, that's a big shock to the system for him. And I know, look, we can talk about the whole Scouse not English thing, but it's a time for him to stand up and take criticism, because he hasn't been perfect, and we've all witnessed him waltzing back and not tracking back. And look, we know Trent's strengths, and us Liverpool fans know that he can defend. And if you look at the stats, I think it was Megan, or one of our social media creators, in the Discord channel, mentioning, bringing facts into the equation, which Southgate has definitely not been involved in our Discord chat because he clearly hasn't got a clue. If he thinks Trippier is a better player, all-round player, he must be having a laugh. Maybe that waistcoat's a bit too tight. But yeah, I mean, Trent's definitely had his criticism, and possibly rightfully so. But missing out on England didn't work out too bad for the Reds the last time round. He came back and had a storming couple of months for the Reds. So as long as that happens, I'm okay with it. I'm no fan of the England setup anyway. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
If you were in an alternate universe, if you had a team and you had to play one of Brighton or Liverpool, who would you rather play this weekend? The team with the new manager or the team with the point to prove?
100% Brighton. Because yes, an unknown entity, that new manager smell is still strong, but it can go both ways, right? I think Liverpool do have a point to prove, like you said. I think look, we all know we haven't come out of the blocks storming. We haven't set the world on fire by any means. So I think I would rather be in Liverpool's shoes, because as much as they are an unknown entity, I think, like David said, we have a lot to prove, and we are an absolute unknown entity. There's no telling what could happen. However, I would rather face a Brighton team rather than the wealth of international talent coming all back into a group. Tsimikas is going to be playing. Robbo's still out apparently, which I love, because Tsimikas has got the bit between his teeth, and really is taking his opportunities really well so far. And I love the fact that we have a backup plan for a left back, because Robbo's not necessarily gassed, but he's had plenty of minutes in those legs over the past couple of years. And hopefully with Calvin Ramsey back in training now, who knows? Maybe it's too early to tell, but in maybe not this year, but maybe next year, he can be that Tsimikas to Trent, and really push on and having that that friendly battle between players in the camp is can only breed success. That friendly rivalry that Robbo and Trent have can spread throughout the group.
David, would you be of the same opinion? You'd rather face Brighton than Liverpool?
Yeah, although I'm distracted at the moment. I'm still trying to get the idea of a new manager smell out of my head. But no,
it smells of Axe deodorant.
Do you want to know, like, if you're a Chelsea player, do you want to just go up and sniff Graham Potter? Do you want to know what he smells like?
It smells of pies and...
he smells of poison chips. Poison chips.
Ale.
I'd much rather play at Brighton right now. Liverpool, I think if you're the rest of the league, like if you're Arsenal right now, you're like, could we just get them before the break? You know what I mean? Like, because if they find their way and they get the bit between their teeth, you don't want to be the team that they find their rhythm against. Once it all starts to click, they become a nightmare to face again. And if to say that they go out there and they beat Brighton 4-0, Arsenal feels like they're looking at a completely different proposition than they would have been looking at a month ago. And so, I think I'd much rather play at Brighton any day, not just because of the talent, just because of where Liverpool are at. And I think what the sort of narrative around our season, we're at this sort of make or break moment. And typically when the lads' backs are against the wall, it's when they're at their best.
Jamie, who would you elect for the nomination? Nunez, who I think scored during the week for the international, or Firmino, who was on a run of form until the last game, I think, maybe.
I think that's a really good question, pertinent right now, because like you said, Nunes had a decent showing. I think he only played 60 minutes, which is great for us. Unfortunately, him and Bobby probably came back into the country late because of, the long distance they had to travel. But I think I would probably play Bobby from the start. And that way, if things aren't going well, you've got Nunes who can give you 30 minutes, who can come on and maybe not have that pressure of a full 90 minutes. Like, I think Bobby's a seasoned vet at this. So, can do those Bobby things that we love and do that link-up play. And, 30 minutes left, if we need a goal or if it's still tied up, 0-0, 1-1, whatever, he can still influence the game off the bench. But it's definitely a good question, and who knows, it only Klopp will be able to tell early days, because they're probably only going to have a couple of days on the training pitch. But should be good to see Darwin come back and reintegrate into the team, and Bobby can just slide in and do what he does normally and what we all love to see.
David, who's your midfield for this game, especially with players coming back now?
I think I'm going with the same midfield that went out last game: Fabinho, Thiago, and Elliott. I think Elliott's been playing great. He offers something a little bit different. He's got that creative spark. Hendo, he is a bit of an injury-prone guy. I know he's coming back, but do you just throw him straight into the mix? I say no. Maybe wait. We've got another Champions League game coming up on Tuesday. Maybe you start Hendo there. I think you go with what worked last time, and I want to see how this midfield develops a little bit with Elliott and Thiago each side of Fabinho. I just think it's an interesting group, and it's a very dynamic group. They have a lot of different skills that they bring to the table. So that's my choice for midfield personally.
In defense, it looked like Konate was training this week. Does he go back in, or are we happy with it? Was made the last game, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it still might
well.
He did. Still probably a bit too early for Konate, but it is great to have him back in and amongst the lads. I'm sure he's been missing the action. A great talent for the future, and really great to have him back because he has that European pedigree, even at such a young age. Coming up with, what did I say earlier? 13 games in 40-something days, a game every 3.2 days. We're going to need him soon enough, and it's going to be like that even after the World Cup, where we have that long break as well. We do tend to function better when it's nonstop, and we can focus on football, and if we can get into that rhythm early doors at Brighton and really kickstart and jumpstart our season again, because Christ knows we need a bit of impetus back into the legs. So maybe that little forced break came at just the right time for us, but probably a bit too early for Konate. I think now is the time for our centre backs to really start to steel up and galvanize, and if we can get a little more sure-footed at the back, then that spreads rife throughout the team, because the midfield, like David said, Jordan Henderson's back in the mix, and we can really start to kick on and really get our season underway here.
David, let's assume the best happens and Salah puts in a top class game. Are we going to expect Luis Diaz to bear, because he has sort of been bearing the burden a lot the last few games, because he has been fantastic just without the goals. Do you think it would be good if Salah could get more off the ground and, give Diaz that little bit of mental headspace to play his natural game and not feel that the team needs him to score? Or do you think it's going to be pretty much the same as it has been?
No, I think getting Mo going has got to be the number one priority. I don't think it would be good. I think it's absolutely needed that we get Mo Salah off the mark here and really run the way that we know that he can. The key to that is I think the two actually have to get closer together and play more off of each other. We'll see if that happens. I know Jurgen said after the Napoli game that we have to rethink ourselves, right? We don't know what that means. I don't know exactly how. I don't know if that means a change in shape or what, but I would imagine that it means they're looking at the data. The last year, Salah's been getting the ball further and further away from goal. Well, we have to rethink how that happens, because without him, I don't think that we've signed him to a $350,000 a week contract or pound a week contract to turn him into a traditional winger, right? That doesn't make any sense. So I think everybody in that coaching staff and locker room is thinking about how do we get Mo the ball in better positions. And I think part of it is getting that whole front line to play a little bit tighter, a little bit narrower. Let your fullbacks, do the wide work rather than having them come inside. I think that is something that will change. And if we can get Salah going, it will benefit Diaz massively, not just in the headspace, but also in the freedom that it'll allow him, because he can start to just play almost a little bit more experimentally. Like, let me just try this. Let me just try that. Not, I have to do this because we need this goal. If Salah's going, he can kind of have more of a, let's just try this and see what happens when he gets it.
Jamie, it seems just on David's point there that we've almost seen Mo Salah turn from being, world-class goal scoring, super fast genius to essentially Stuart Downing in the space of 7 or 8 games, because that's essentially what he's doing right now, isn't he? He's literally just hugging the touchline and hoping for the best. I think David's correct, but do you see a solution that's going to be completely different? So maybe switching Luis Diaz and Salah's wing positions, or something radical, rather than just hope that Salah figures it out? Do you think there'll be something different that we'll see?
I'm not sold on whether it's going to be something radical, because we know the track record with Klopp and mid-season tweaks. And I know we've had a 19-day break or whatever, but he always complains about changing systems mid-season and then there's not enough time to work on it on the training pitch, blah, blah, blah. Who knows? Maybe there's a massive goal bonus involved in Salah's contract, and they're just like, we're going to stick him out here on the wing so he doesn't get his goal bonuses. I'm joking around. I'm joking around, obviously, and I hope to God he starts banging him in. But I think he got sent back from Egyptian duty early, didn't he? So possibly that's a good thing. That he's back in camp, ready to go. I know he is going to be the type of person that wants to right these wrongs and wants to get in amongst the goals and start influencing games the way we know he can. Like he can't score bangers against, like he did against Chelsea, that 30-yard out where he just takes a touch inside. Like he can't score them every week. And he doesn't. Those screamers from well outside the box really aren't his forte. It's the ones where he's in the box and dribbles inside out, and that street football where he just seems untouchable. It's just a matter of letting him do that and getting into the spaces where he can do that, because like you said, I'm not so sure about that.
I just want to say,
we can all chip in and get Maka a raise here so we can.
Yeah, because I'm drinking chocolate. You guys have alcohol. I've got chocolate milk here. That's how poor I am.
So, I mean, in all honesty, you're not wrong though, Maka. Diaz was kind of ruling the show, and not really through design, I would say. That's through just who he is, grit and determination. That fast-paced Colombian style of his, I think he would be like that on whoever's team. But I think in order to get Salah back amongst the main focus and back amongst the goals, I think a few things have to happen, and it kind of starts at the back, like we were talking about. That kind of sure-footedness at the back can spread into midfield and therefore spread up to the front, because Mo Salah's wasted way far out there on the wing, and who knows, maybe it is having somebody like Harvey do the work of two men as opposed to letting Mo do his job out on the wing. Do you know what I mean? Like we looked at the heat maps a couple of weeks back on the pod, and Trent, Harvey, and Mo were all kind of occupying the same space in the final third. So maybe you kind of have to put a bit more faith into Harvey's shoulders, which is a big ask for a 19-year-old, but maybe somebody else can do it. I don't know. But we definitely need to get Mo more involved.
I think I read as well that Salah was sent back early from Egypt because he plays so wide, he can't actually participate in their tactics because they play a pyramid. There
goes that raise.
Yeah, there goes that raise. So from what final score predictions, Jamie?
Yeah, I'll go with 3-1. I think they'll grab one. Hopefully, we don't concede first. But yeah, I think we're going to win out.
It doesn't say much for the sure-footed defense if you're going to predict us to concede one. David, what do you think?
I'll go 4-2. I think there will be goals in this game. I don't know how many, but I think there's going to be several goals. And I don't know. I do see us getting back to it. I don't know. Brighton, the way they play, I mean, they are creative. You saw what they did to United at Old Trafford, right? So, look, they're a good side.
What was that score? What was that score again, David, just for posterity?
I don't know.
4? Was it 4?
Yeah.
Was it 4?
I think, it was 4-0.
Always good to rub it in against the United lads.
I'm going to go 2-0. I actually think we will be sure-footed in defence. I think there'll be just maybe a little bit too much confusion for Brighton, and they weren't great scorers in the first place. So even by default, I think we might keep the clean sheet. So from the pyramid nonsense, let's go to the final bit of nonsense of the night. The threshold question this week, David and Jamie, would you rather have a face like Steve or teeth like Luis Suarez?
I mean, Suarez's teeth, they're a decent weapon. You've seen the damage they can do. I'm going to go with those.
I've seen the damage Steve Staunton's face can do as well, to be fair.
I think I'll go and take the Steve Staunton face because you can hit that face as many times as you like, and you may end up rearranging it and making him prettier. Yeah. Suarez has got the kind of face only a mother would love.
The only problem with Suarez's teeth is there's so much human flesh in it. You'd have to get used to cannibalism probably at that point. But Steve Staunton looks like Steve Staunton.
With Suarez's teeth, you just sprinkle the marinade right into your mouth, and then there you go.
David's got all the solutions. It'd be
great for corn on the cob, wouldn't it?
Oh, it would be fantastic. Which is exactly what Steve Staunton's face looks like, and his legs. Works out perfectly. Gentlemen, just remains to say thank you very much as always. Fantastic talking to you, Jamie and David, and maybe for next week's show, you let me know what color your teeth. If anybody ever watched the movie Heartbreak Ridge with Clint Eastwood, where he's mobilizing and training that platoon, and every morning he has a different t-shirt, and they have to figure out what color t-shirt he's wearing. That's what I feel like right now. So we'll color coordinate for next week. But the morning coffee show is on tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern time, with me and Trevor. The Monday podcast is on Monday, and I believe there's a possibility of a pre-match and a watch-along for the game this weekend. There'll be more on that on the Discord channel and the Facebook page, etc. So make sure you like, subscribe, join the Discord, engage with us. That's what we're here for, except for me, because apparently you get paid too much to be dealing with the peasants. Thanks, Alan. And we will see you next Thursday, where we will have actual soccer to talk about. With I believe the Champions League starts again for us. Yes, yeah. Back in the big time. David, thank you very much. Jamie, thank you very much. We will see everybody next week. So long, people.